All right, and we are live again on another open bar. Open bar, for anybody who hasn't seen it before, it is an open show. We have a general topic. Anybody is welcome to come on to discuss it. And then we move it behind the paywall to the Men of Now community group where we do a Zoom call every single week with our guys. So definitely, if that's something you're interested in, uh, reach out to us because the community is growing and the value just keeps growing as well. So it's been very exciting. But Josh, how are you doing, man?
Good, good. It's been a fun holiday weekend over here, so definitely some stories came out of it. But yeah, been good overall, and no complaints. Saw a lot of family, saw a lot of friends, and it was just a very very good solid time. So always glad to be on here though, discussing open bar topics. I'm particularly excited for our topic today.
I am as well, and that is Brotherhood. Now, it's interesting, this whole thing about Brotherhood, because I myself, like, I was in a fraternity in college. I have always been a part of like small men's communities, but there was periods of my life where I was kind of like a lone wolf. So what is your experience with Brotherhood?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one, right, when you have actual physical family members, right, that's in a sense brotherhood, right? So it can start there very small, and usually when you have siblings, right, you tend to fight growing up and whatnot. But then as you get a little bit older, then you get a lot closer and more well meshed together. So it's kind of like the founding fledgling symbiotes of it. But as you go out into the world and try and figure things out, really that brotherhood that you always kind of seek or gravitate towards is always someone that's where you're currently at, and you're trying to figure out or trying to find a little bit more understanding, or just a little bit more understanding of where it is you want to be. So for me, I've always kind of sought that out, whether I realized it or not, even during my phases where I felt internally like a little bit more like a kind of like a lone wolf, sort of going my own wayish. But when I was in high school playing sports, that was definitely like a brotherhood right there. Because again, it's you, your teammates. You have a common objective. You're going to battle together, and so that led to some really core kind of understanding of like, okay, here's how I can kind of socialize and figure out what type of brotherhood I'm sort of looking for, what I'm trying to like put together. And so, really it's about goal setting and then investing in the people that, can help you achieve that goal, where you all help each other out. So that was kind of like the fledgling start of it for me. And then once I got into college, it kind of got split into two different realms, where one was like my peers and contemporaries, where it's like, okay, I'm just trying to navigate the social scene and just navigate life sort of, in general as a college kid. And then when I started going out and getting into the car world, getting into the car community, really networking and building good friendships and a bit of a brotherhood with some of my car buddies. And so these were guys that were, older, much more well established, were doing really cool, awesome things. And so it was like, yeah, this is definitely the direction and trajectory that, I want for my life. And I want to go and experience this and be in this position one day. So what do I need to do, or how do I even need to just, approach the situation in order to learn as much as I can? And so through that, wind up getting a very good brotherhood of one, very good friends, but also two very good mentors that just really helped sort of guide and shape me. So that for me has been sort of like kind of my arc and my journey through, fostering brotherhood and really looking and seeking for it. And so now that I'm in a very different position, yes, I definitely still do have my mentors, but I'm in a more of a position where now it's like, okay, other people that were in a position that I was in years ago that are seeking, brotherhood knowledge or understanding these types of things. That's where, I very much am at the phase where it's like, okay, now I feel much more in a position where I can, be a part of that, but be a little bit more on the advice giving side, or the experience giving side of the equation, rather than being purely on the knowledge drinking side, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm just young, I haven't done anything yet, I'm just trying to absorb as much as possible. Now it's like, okay, I'm that guy where it's like, okay, I've got some crazy stories and some good adventures in there, so now I can pass on, what I've learned. So that's this kind of like exciting phase of Brotherhood that I'm in right now.
That's cool. Yeah. When you're talking about that, going from being a knowledge drinker to an actual teacher, that's kind of like how I viewed it as the fraternity back in college for me, where essentially like you come in, you're a pledge, like you don't really understand the ins and outs of how everything works. But then as you kind of like move up in time, like you can then have the opportunity to take some of those roles within the organization that were not available to you yet, and then being able to pass knowledge down to others as you're learning along. What we call, I guess, in the fraternity area, big brothers, little brothers. So essentially, like taking somebody in under your wing when they come into the organization, so that they can adjust well and be successful. And it's interesting when we talk about, because that's really where brotherhood is it's these different communities that you become a part of, and people that you bond with to continue to help you grow and support you in the things that you're trying to do. Like for example, like your car brotherhood, it's supporting your love of cars, and that's awesome. Like I know with me, I've got a couple random communities that I'm a part of, or brotherhoods, for video games and other silly hobbies like that. But it's fun. It's fun to have that, and it's good to have that because it helps push you forward. It helps you learn. It helps you grow. Now, one of the things that I found interesting is that the different brotherhoods I've been in throughout my life, they've changed. There's ones that last and there's ones that don't. And so I'm curious, in different brotherhoods that you may have experienced in the past, have there ever been ones that didn't work out, or that you just outgrew, or what's been your experience with things not meshing?
Yeah, for 100%. And I would say that it's not so much that, like outgrew them or whatnot. I think it was just sometimes, you evolve or grow in different directions, right? Because again, when you first start something and have a set of circumstances and a set of goals and a set of objectives, great, that's awesome. And then as time goes on, sometimes, that alignment continues, and then other times that alignment shifts and splits for whatever reason. It doesn't have to necessarily be like a bad thing or malicious thing or anything. It could just be like, hey, I am now very much more interested in going off and exploring Europe for 2 years, and everyone still just wants to stay here and further develop and hang out and know more people in their local community. All right, great, that's nothing wrong with that. So just kind of two different things. So that's the way I always kind of viewed it. It was just the goals and objectives, they changed, so the alignment changed. So it was like, hey, for this particular period in my life, we were on the same page, or we we're in sync, so this was a lot more cohesive. But then things change, whether it's the broader group goals and dynamics change, or my own personal goals and objectives drastically change. So you just move apart and move in different directions. But very much so, I would say I'm very fortunate where I haven't had any of them that's like ended on bad terms, or were hostile or anything like that. It was just more like, oh hey, like you guys are going in direction A, I want to go in direction B, or actually in this case I want to go to direction Z. So we got to go like slightly different opposing directions. So it's don't wish any ill will or anything, or don't have anything like really bad to say about anybody, but just we want to go for different things. And that's the thing, when you want different things or want different objectives, you need to be around people that have those exact same objectives, so that way you aren't taking away from your efficacy and your ability to get towards those objectives. So again, if those objectives shift or if they change, then you're both not going to be as effective for each other to help each other attain that, because again, you're trying to do different things. So it's just having that honest assessment and just be like, hey, here's where I'm at, or like, hey, here's where I feel everybody else is at, and this is the direction that you're going. This is really the direction that I want to go. So this is the time where again, not saying don't my door is forever closed to you, or you can never keep in touch or anything, but just hey, for the sake of like my normal regular check-ins and cadences and whatnot, there's going to be a different group or a different pathway that I have to go find and forge. and you guys can continue going on your pathway and wherever it is that you need to go. So you find sort of your different tribes throughout your different periods in life, right? Because oftentimes, right, people have very different sets of friends from when they're in high school to when they're in college to when they're out of college to when they're in their late 20s to when they're in their 30s. Like, you can shift a lot of groups. Now there's definitely folks that stay consistent throughout the whole time, but for the large part, I'm pretty sure you can attest to this, like your usual friend group and close associates and people that you spend a lot of time with, they are very, very different than the core group of people that you're spending a majority of your time with like 15 years ago, right? So you go through those kind of different evolutions in different phases. And so again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing that as we grow and develop and again, we really come into our own and figure out what it is that we want out of this life and how we want to do it, there's just different folks that are going to be very helpful at very different stages, and vice versa. You're going to be very helpful for them at very different stages too, right? Because you're bringing that fresh energy, or you're very curious about something, or you have a lot of knowledge and insight about it, and then hey, turns out they want to go and move on to something else. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that I did want to touch on, because we are going to have to jump here again, if anybody is wanting to join or try out the Men of Now community, we're going to do our private call after this. The link is in the description below. It'll be a 7-day free trial. So if you want to do that and hop on tonight's Zoom call, by all means, would love to have you. One of the things I want to touch on before we jump on that though, is when it comes to finding the right type of brotherhood. Now, that's something that I ran into as an issue because I kind of went from having those like individual brotherhoods growing up with the sports teams and then the fraternity, different clubs and organizations I was a part of throughout college. And then I was alone. I just did complete lone wolf. And then when I got back, I realized like I wasn't going in the right direction, and I did need to be surrounded by others. When I came back into building, strong connections in these communities, I did make some mistakes. And one of the things that I think is important for guys to understand is when you're trying to find a community, because there's so many different communities out there, when you're trying to find a community, everybody may have the same mission, but pay attention to how those people talk about things. We tend to be very positive here. Like, we'll call you out on your BS if we need to, but we tend to be very positive, and I view that as a plus. Also, huge shout out to Thor over with the Dragon Ship. It's the same thing. The motto that we have over there: a rising tide lifts all ships, and that's the truth. So that's something to pay very close attention to, because it's funny. I just was like thinking about it. One rotten apple can go ahead and ruin the whole bag, and that's the truth. And I've been in communities before where there's like one bad actor that just completely sours the entire thing and doesn't make it enjoyable, and actually forces people to be less engaged and can actually kill groups. So just pay attention for those types of things.
yeah, and I'd say that's a really key point that you really locked in on there, which is, you may have similar goals, but oftentimes you have very different pathways, right? So how about they go about, achieving or attaining that goal? That's really, something that you want to pay attention to, because, certain, people are they're wired differently, right? So they want to go do and leverage things in different ways and go about achieving objectives in a very different way. So if that's something that just doesn't sit well or mesh with you, or you find yourself having to compromise yourself a lot in order to quote unquote fit in order to do that, then that's definitely something to take very much into consideration. Because I've definitely been there where there's been groups that I'm like, okay, let me check these guys out and let's just see how things are kind of going. And after a very short period of time, it's like, yeah, we have very similar goals, but just the way in which you guys are approaching those goals and going about it, that just doesn't suit well or vibe well with the way that I would go about things. So more power to you guys. Do your thing. I'm definitely going to go in a slightly different direction. So that's very much something to be very cognizant of, and something to take into consideration is how these other groups go about and approach their objectives are achieving those, because yeah, they're doing something that's very stark contrast to like how you would do it or how you feel comfortable with things. Then that's something you should take into consideration. And yeah, do be very aware of bad actors, as well as how the group handles and treats those situations, right? Is it like, hey, this is a chance for us all to really rally together and really help someone, or does it devolve very quickly into like Lord of the Flies, and it's like everyone for themselves, and someone's getting a stake through their heart, right? So it's always be very, very cognizant of that sort of dynamic in the group, and how its balance is maintained.
Yeah, because I tell you what, I've seen groups before where somebody like will just post publicly asking for help on something, and then you just have a whole bunch of people beating on them essentially because of what they had said. Like, dude, you stupid? Like, you just need to do this, and it's like, but that's not. This may not be the group of people I want to be hanging out with, because if that's how they're going to respond to everything, like I don't want to be bullied or talked down to every single time that I'm
Yeah,
trying to
there's
solve a problem. So there, it just every group is different. There's a lot of groups out there that are trying to do a lot of the same things, just live better lives. But yeah, definitely be aware of that type of stuff, and don't be worried about stepping away if you have to, if something doesn't work out, because there's many other groups out there as well.
yeah, just know your environment that you thrive in, right? Like, some guys, they need the, very hardcore militaristic discipline style, which great, they'll thrive in. And a lot of other guys, they'll just be absolutely crushed by it, right? And then some other guys need a little bit more of that, like, hey, you can stumble and fall a little bit, but we'll nurture you a bit, right? So you can kind of figure it out, and okay, well, we'll get you there. Or again, other guys, that would just be too much of a distraction. They'll run around aimlessly. So, know thyself, so that way you can know sort of what type of environment you really thrive under.
Absolutely. All right, before we jump here, because we got to start the call. Shout out to you, Chris. Been ages. Hope you guys are doing well. We are doing well. Hope you're doing well yourself.
I hope you're doing good, sir.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's dive deeper into this with the members. So thank you guys. We'll talk soon. Peace out.